In this video, I'm going to be giving a definitive guide on the differences between Switch 1 and Switch 2. Hope you enjoy, and if you do enjoy this one, please make sure to give it a like. The screen sizes vary largely from the Switch, Switch OLED and Switch 2. The original Switch is a 6.2-inch screen, similar to what you'd get on an average smartphone. The Switch OLED in 2021 bumped that up to a 7-inch screen, and the Switch 2 is 7.9 inches, making it 1.7 inches larger than the OG Switch. The screen tech varies a lot depending on the models. The Switch 1 comes with a fairly low quality dim LCD screen, which means that it has just one big backlight lighting up all of the pixels. But the Switch OLED, which is in the name, has an OLED screen. This means that each individual pixel has its own light, making each pixel more vibrant and the ability to turn off individual pixels. This creates deeper blacks. The Switch 2 got in many controversies about the screen type that it used, which is actually back to LCD. However, many people describe it as leagues ahead of the Switch 1 screen, and possibly even better than the Switch OLED, so really screen type doesn't really matter here. What does matter though is the screen quality, where the Switch 1 screen was only 720p. This is a bad resolution in today's world, so when the Switch 2 is revealed, it was great but expected that it came with a much better resolution 1080p screen. To put in perspective, 1080p is around 2.25 times more pixels than 720p, making the Switch 2 much more sharper. What came as a shock was the refresh rate, which had been bumped up to 120 FPS on the Switch 2. The screen on the Switch 1 was capped at 60 FPS, and that was expected to continue on the Switch 2. For the time of filming, we really don't have that many games that support 120 FPS, apart from one singular minigame on the Switch 2 Welcome Tour. 120 FPS support on the Switch 2 screen is a great feature, and hopefully will be more utilised in the future. On the body of the system, we have some exciting upgrades comparative to the Switch 1. To start off, Nintendo has managed to make the body the same thickness, which is surprising to me but good at the same time. The USB-C on the top of the Switch 2 gives the option to charge in tabletop mode, and probably most commonly just for easier use with handheld mode. In dock mode, the top USB-C can be used for a camera to use for game chat. The microSD slot has had a noticeable change, now only providing support for the new and improved microSD Express cards, which offer faster speeds and more reliability. The screen is actually glass this time around, but is covered by the pre-installed plastic screen protector, which Nintendo says shouldn't be removed. The screen protector prevents the glass from going everywhere in case the screen shatters, as well as that it provides protection. Storage on the Switch 2 system has been increased by 8 times, going from 32GB on the original Switch 1 to 256GB on the Switch 2. Even though it is 8 times more, the problem with game keycards might make this 256GB to be consumed quickly, as games with internal storage in the cartridge seem to be disappearing from reality thick and fast. The Joy-Con 2 controllers are another exciting upgrade for the Switch 2, which have changed a bit from the Switch 1. Obviously, as the body of the Switch 2 has increased in size, the Joy-Con 2 controllers have increased in size as well, making it easier to hold for larger hands and less uncomfortable than before. Buttons are fairly similar but have increased in size. The trigger button is now much larger, probably what you'll notice the most. The HD Rumble 2 on the Switch 2 features enhanced rumble technology, making games feel even more immersive with better vibrations. The IR sensor on the Switch 1 has been ditched following the Switch 2, as the gimmick was used on very few select titles, much less than Nintendo probably intended. Considering the price the IR sensor probably costed to put on the Joy-Cons, it makes sense to leave it out. One of the main headlining features for the Joy-Con 2 is the optical sensor on the side, making the Switch 2 a mouse as well for select titles. We have seen it be used for games like Fortnite, Welcome Tour and Cyberpunk already, with many more games coming in the future. The mouse feature seems to be working extremely well, and the ability to use it on your lap is an important but advanced addition. Of course, we can't forget about the magnets in the Joy-Con 2, so we can connect them magnetically. This is definitely a feature that sets apart the Switch 1 from the Switch 2. With the Switch 1, rails were used to slide the Joy-Cons onto the Switch 1 body. Over time, they would get quite rattled whilst playing, so were not the best. With the Switch 2, the magnets provided stable support for the Joy-Cons to connect to the Switch 2 seamlessly and of course in a very satisfying way. The sound and the feeling of the connection of the Joy-Con 2 and the Switch 2 is very satisfying. The last feature for the Joy-Con 2 is the new C button, which has had a lot of question before the announcement of the Switch 2 of what this button actually does. We found out that it was a quick action button to the new game chat feature, which is Nintendo's version of Discord. Compatibility for 4K on consoles is a must for modern gaming, and is pleasing to see on the Switch 2, but not surprising for most people. This 4K ability is available from docked mode when you are playing on a TV or monitor. This 4K ability is a huge upgrade from the 1080p ability for Switch 1, so you'll be able to notice a significant quality boost if you are switching between consoles. HDR, also known as High Dynamic Range, is a feature for the Switch 2, which can make your games look more visually appealing and brighter. The dock is another noteworthy addition to this video, as it now has internal cooling for the ports. People have been getting very confused over this one, as people thought that the fans cooled the Switch 2 itself, but only the ports. The Switch 1 came with a USB port, an HDMI port, and a USB-C port for powering the dock and the console. With the Switch OLED, the USB port was switched to a built-in Ethernet port, which was a cool addition to make the system download games and play online much more efficiently and faster. The Switch 2 dock has the same ports compared to the Switch OLED. Alright, that just about wraps up the main important details between the Switch 1 and Switch 2. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and if you did, please hit the like button and even subscribe if you want to get consistent Nintendo focused videos. Thank you so much for watching and enjoy your day.